Welcome everyone to the Monday night live Q&A. Erin Snow, our clinical director for our residential treatment program, Seeking Integrity Los Angeles, is here with me tonight. She and Dr. Rob alternate weeks, and so this is Erin's week. It's limiting when I say that you're the clinical director for our residential treatment program, because honestly, Erin oversees kind of like everything: our Empowered Women's Retreat, our virtual step down program, just lots of things. So I'm introduce her as our clinical director, which is true. Yes.
Yeah.
But right now she's here for you. So we're going to get started with questions.
Yes.
And you got on, so I think you can see all of them. So the first one, Erin, is my SA husband in shoddy recovery for 2.5 years, meetings, CSAT, etc. He told me his fantasy about my sister. I tried her in person also and was seeing down her shirt. Bralessness is a trigger for him, as far as I knew. I just saw our business neighbor who had been walking around her backyard without a bra. My husband had his cameras in her private space. He said he wasn't triggered. I said, how not? It's part of your arousal template. He said, no, it's not. When I told you about your sister, that was a lie. She was actually on ecstasy and giving a blowjob. Oh, goodness, I'm sorry to be reading this stuff out. I'm beside myself. I will never feel comfortable around him, with him around anyone. Thoughts?
Oh, I mean, I don't necessarily know the question in here, but I can tell you that my thoughts are devastation for you. Because here's the thing with a lot of what he's bringing up is non-consenting victims in here, right? So, we obviously work with various men that have some issues with exhibitionism or voyeurism, and those things do come up. We don't work with any touch offenders of any kind. That would require a different program, a different set of skills. In this case, yeah, I think that's what's challenging is you're talking about him. Okay, first of all, and I'll just call this to attention, shoddy recovery. I mean, so that's red flag number one, is like these things are going on that are absolutely devastating to your sense of well-being and safety and security. He's supposed to make you feel safe, and you're over here with triggers you never asked for being all around you. Hence why, him telling you about his sister led to you seeing a woman in the neighbor who should feel comfortable in her own backyard, but clearly, training cameras in her private space, that would classify as voyeurism, right? That I'm looking into somebody's space that did not welcome me there for the sake of. So for him to say that I'm not triggered by that, even though he said that to you before, the evidence is go with your gut here. His cameras are watching the other woman's backyard. I mean, that's very concerning to me. That this would be somebody I would be saying, get your butt to treatment, because you've been in recovery for 2.5 years, and yet you're doing things that are making your partner feel A, confused, B, devastated, and C, very unsafe. Like you said, I don't want to be around him at all. And quite frankly, all of his messages don't make sense. They're in contradiction to one another. He's telling you I'm triggered by this. He's telling you I'm not triggered by that. He's telling you that, I mean, even just some of the things he's telling you. And I know this is controversial, but for our guys, look, all of humans fantasize. We all do. If I told you the thoughts that were in my head 24/7, I would create triggers for all the people around me that didn't need to be in their head also, because they're thoughts. And sometimes we don't have control of our thoughts. Okay. We do oftentimes, especially for men that have been doing this a long time, they go to fantasy as a way to self-soothe, as a way to, avoid uncomfortable emotion. But to go into the depths of those fantasies with somebody else, I can't even imagine like what that now those triggers have become your triggers, right? So this has issues all over it and concerns all over it. A, because I'm not in recovery. I'm doing things that would make anybody feel uncomfortable, certainly, especially not his intimate partner. To be fantasizing about somebody else, okay, that can be fairly normal in any person, but to get to a place of your sister, here are the details, bringing up drugs and explicit sex acts that you're fantasizing about. there's a level almost of exhibitionism even with you, meaning that,
Mm.
exhibitionists may flash themselves at somebody, they may, and it's the shock factor, it's the shock value. And there's some of what he's saying to you, I'm like, who would say that to their partner? That is, in some ways it almost feels like there's a shock value even in saying it to you. Because I mean, obviously most of our guys, the issue is that they minimize and lie. He's like coming out with like razor blade type painful things to say to you. So I would be very concerned. I would be considering residential treatment. And I'm not just saying that because we run residential treatment. You can do your research. Obviously, we offer expertise and we have dealt with many men like this, but there's red flags all over that. So I would just say healthy boundaries for you, getting safe. This does not feel safe to me. It feels at best concerning.
Yeah, I like you use shoddy recovery. I'm like zero recovery. I mean, that is, training cameras at the neighbor's backyard in a hashtag Me Too world. Like, I'd be like so not okay. And I can understand and appreciate your concern about being around him with anybody else around. I would be concerned of probably just being around him, period. Like what is he thinking and what is, and the objectification, like, a woman, braless or not, like, he's still focused on a certain body part. He's not looking at someone as a person, as a whole. Probably you feel that as well, that, I'm not considered a whole person. I'm not considered a partner. He's not considering my welfare. So I'm with Erin. This, a residential treatment program, I will put a link. We have a 14, 21 or 28-day link to say. I was also thinking it would be really interesting to meet with his CSAT and express the concern, because I am confident he's going to the CSAT and going like, yeah, I don't have any triggers, I'm doing great. And he's going to his meetings and he's saying nice words or whatever. But like this is this is disconcerting. So I'm so glad you're here. But like Erin said too, healthy boundaries for you. Like what do you need to do to take care of you? We talk about that a lot. And I'm working on scheduling a boundaries work group to start in January. Debbie McCrae, who is fantastic at internal and external bond. Yeah, she's like the best. She can just start using the four-part talking boundary. And I'm like, I have to actually think about what that would be. And she's just, she's amazing. And so, but she's going to offer a work group similar to our betrayed partner work group and, sex addiction 101, et cetera. But for you, healthy boundaries, like he's not doing anything to build trust. So what do you need to see in order, to move closer to him, et cetera. So thanks for being here. And I'm like, honestly, I'm thinking, ugh, I wouldn't want to be the neighbor. So do fetishes get more intense from watching porn? This is a great question. If so, do they die down in recovery? Can an addict who has a fetish learn to have vanilla sex without all the additional stimuli that fetishes bring?
Yeah. So this is interesting. Fetishes typically originate in the arousal template, right? Which has some types of roots in childhood. However, some people are aware of those fetishes without ever watching porn because they're thought of it, fantasized about it. Like, for instance, feet, right? You don't have to watch porn to recognize that you have a feet fetish. Other people, by watching porn, recognize that those roots that are in their arousal template are coming out in the fetishes that they're visually stimulated by. So they may pick up a fetish, right? That they weren't even aware was a part of my arousal template until I started watching it. And now I'm watching it all the time. That being said, yes. So fetishes are not going anywhere. Here's something that's important to note. It's a part of your arousal template. We've seen a lot of people attempt to like contaminate certain fetishes, but they're going to have some level of root or association in your arousal template ongoing. Some would call those ego dystonic, would be that I hate this fetish. I don't want to be aroused by this thing, and I wish that it would go away, right? And other people are, hey, I can embrace this. I can incorporate this into my sex life in some way, in a healthy way. So fetishes are nor good or bad. It just is a matter of, can I incorporate in this in my life, in my relationship? Yes, we have a number of couples that come through that one partner has a fetish and has essentially hidden it based on shame from the partner that they're married to or in a relationship with. And then that comes out and it's like, oh my God, I don't even know you. And this is not something that's in my arousal template at all. So I think that there's ways to have healthy discussions around, is this a fetish that we can incorporate in our healthy, intimate sex life? Or is it something that like, no, I can't. And yes, people can absolutely have sex that is based in intimacy, based in the connection with somebody else, that doesn't have to have big triggers, big stimuli, big taboo things. And other people may say, no, that's not for me. I'm not able to do that. But I think in our integrity, we have to ask ourselves, is that something that I'm willing and able to A, first be open and honest about with my partner, and B, something that we can incorporate or not. And then you have to navigate how we move forward, right? Is there a way to incorporate this on my own? Is there a way to incorporate this in other areas of my life that are not sexual, that are not lying or hiding or shameful? Because healthy sex, that's the first thing, is like, shouldn't include shame. You know, you shouldn't be engaging in a sexual act and then having crushing shame afterwards, or there's something not right. But I will say that yes, watching porn absolutely is a level of intensity and dopamine that climbs through the roof. And so not watching porn over time begins to reroute those neural networks, just like with porn induced erectile dysfunction. It doesn't go on forever. Once you reduce the stimuli and your dopamine is recalibrated to like what a normal sexual experience would require, now we're in a place where, okay, I can actually get an erection when I'm not, you know, being stimulated by something that's high dopamine intensity seeking. So same thing with anything that you're watching. If you discontinue that, it's going to spend less time in your fantasy world. You're not going to be grooving those same neural networks over and over and over again, causing kind of almost like an obsession with the thing. And yes, you can return to a more healthy level of dopamine associated with sex. And so that would be the same with fetishes as well. But what I will say, yeah, they're a part of you. So it's a matter of like, how do I incorporate this in a way that can be healthy, but for sure being open and honest and having those discussions in relationships. And oftentimes when our guys are to the place of talking about them, they've already done so much hiding, lying, doing it with other people. Like there's so much betrayal that it's not really like the most healthy connected relationship to then begin to be like, hey honey, are you really open to like incorporating my fetish? And they're like, I can't even look at you right now, right? So it's all about timing and the health of the relationship as well when you're reintegrating sex back in, after you've established some trust again and emotional intimacy has regrown, having those conversations.
So, and we get this question, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I'd like you to address this too. Like, we get people who perceive that because they have a fetish, they have a sex addiction. Can you just kind of clarify a little bit about that too, please, while we're talking about fetishes?
Totally. Yeah. So believe it or not, we don't accept everybody into residential treatment. You have to have a compulsive sexual behavior disorder, right? I have to be able to assess you for having compulsive sexual or problematic sex. Somebody who calls and doesn't like the fact that they have a fetish around BDSM or they have a fetish around latex, that would be ego dystonic, right? So they don't like that they are attracted to this thing. And I will tell them I am not, or I'll have somebody who calls and it's about their sexual orientation, right? That they're telling me about their acting out. And I'm like, you know, I think really this kind of comes down to more of a sexual orientation concern, but because of religious beliefs or the way that they were brought up or political beliefs, they want to get that part of them out of them. So they want to call their behavior sex addiction, when really I don't see compulsive behavior in what they're doing. I see them trying to express themselves, but their shame or their inability to accept themselves has caused them to say, no, I want to go to treatment. I want to call this addiction and I want this gone from me. And I'm not going to do that to somebody. I'm not going to allow them to label a part of themselves addiction when that doesn't actually meet criteria for addiction. But you certainly can have a fetish and sexual addiction. So it just, you know, that's why the assessment process I think is so important. Is also, you know, we get the guy that called and he had one, you know, mistake and the partner is really upset and wants, and I understand, like, oh my God, infidelity in any way is absolutely hurtful and harmful and traumatic. But I'm not going to label something compulsive when it's happened one time, right? And that sure, could our program teach you intimacy, and empathy and relationship skills and communication, all those things? Yes, but the qualifiers, you have to have problematic sexual behavior that would qualify as, compulsive. Good question,
Thank you for elaborating on that.
You get that
Okay.
question a lot.
Yes, that's what I wanted to have you talk about. Hello, I'm a port addict, 2.5 months sober in 12-step program, working with a sponsor and a CSAT. My question is about my fetish. Apparently it's fetish night. Since I remember, I have fantasized about being overpowered by a woman, wrestling them, trying to escape, etc., usually bigger than me. Eventually, this turned out to be one of the online contents that I would watch. This started definitely before I was age 10 years old, the fantasies. I started watching porn when I was 21. My question is why a young boy would have such a bizarre thoughts. Is it possible I was exposed to some physical or sexual trauma? I know I was emotionally neglected. This is another great question, because like people are often looking for well, if I just understand the why, then, and so yes, please share.
Yeah. So the why is not always important. Okay. I know that for many of us, we want to search for that. What the hell? Especially when it feels out of left field. Like you're saying, this feels so out of left field for a young boy. Yes, I will tell you that statistically, a lot of our arousal template is formed by all kinds of things in childhood. It could be, and that can be shifted and changed as you grow as well. So many women who experience having to be heavily masculine in life, meaning I am the planner, I am the productivity one, I am the boss at work, I am all those things, want to be submissive in the bedroom because it's a place where they can sexually express a role of themselves that they're not able to express. And I want to be taken care of in this way. And vice versa, men or women who feel the opposite, who feel I have no voice, I feel shame about being dominating. They may express that I want to, that is really a turn on for me in the sex world, because I feel like I can express a part of myself that I'm not able to express in broad daylight, right? So with you, could it be trauma repetition? Possibly. I wouldn't dig so far down to try and feel like, what did I witness a larger woman taking down a small boy? Like you may not find that. Our subconscious is so vast, and it really is a creative, brilliant part of our psyche. Is our subconscious creates experiences for us that meet a certain need, and in other ways satisfy us in different ways. So obviously I would say you could spend your life looking for the moment or the thing. Dr. Rob talks about the guy with the foot fetish he distinctly remembers where it started. I was laying on my mother's feet when she would play the piano and she would play barefoot, and like it just carried on from there. Not everybody can discover that, and nor do we have to. The part of you is saying, well, can I embrace this part of myself? I don't know. Is this something that I can role play? Like this, sexuality can be a place that can be very fun. There can be creativity. There can be ways to express yourself. Again, the point is to do that without shame, which is, how can I express myself sexually in a way that does not bring up, uh, lying, cheating somebody, manipulating somebody, or most, intentionally not putting myself in a position that I don't feel good about myself. A lot of sexuality comes with shame, and it doesn't have to. So I would explore that more. I think it's definitely something that you can look at, but just know that the fantasy and the why is not going to solve the problem, right? And I'm glad that you recognized that you had a compulsive porn problem and that it got out of hand and that you're in recovery, and it sounds like doing some good work.
Yeah, I mean, I even hear the shame of like, such bizarre thoughts. I was like, yeah, but, I'm sure there's lots more people out there that, yeah, exactly. It's
Let me just tell you, this is the least of the bizarre things that I hear, right? I mean, this
on a daily basis.
Sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Here's what I hear. I hear somebody who is doing the work, You're in 12 step, you're working with a sponsor and a CSAT. Good for you. And, you know, and yes, the why, you know, that, you know, there are layers, you know, and I've been in recovery for decades, and I've shared this before, but like I found out, you know, probably, I don't know, 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, oh, there's another component of it. Guess what? I was living happily in recovery, and it's just another aha moment. And I am completely open to learning more, and there will be something else, and it's all good, you know. So just embrace where you are right now. Work your steps. Steps 4 through 9 are really helpful at cleaning out, you know, cleaning the house and getting things in order. So lean into your recovery, and thanks for being here. Oh, and we have a porn addiction 101. If you haven't joined that online work group, we have a sex addiction and porn addiction separate online work groups, both starting November 2nd. So check them out there on the Seeking Integrity site. I'll put a link in just a moment too. Okay. Thank you for everything you do. It's been almost 5 years since I discovered my 40-plus-year-old husband is addicted to teen porn. Recently, he told me he's attracted to teen, not the first time. I'm having a very hard time, specifically because we have 3 daughters, 2 are teens. Every time I see him triggered or voice my concern, he gets angry, creates stories. He is defensive, and most of all, plays the victim. Because of that, I stopped going anywhere with him.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And if we're talking like, you know, prepubescent teens, like, you know, that would be something that we would refer to more in the offender category, because minors can never consent, right? So those would be non-consenting victims. The attraction is one thing, not, and I actually, you know, and this is controversial too, I actually have empathy for people who have attraction to things that like they can't get out of their head and they never act on it, but they just stuck there, right? Again, call it a fetish, call it an attraction, but this is a really concerning one. As a mother, right, of children, if I knew that my partner was attracted to the age range and the gender of the children that I had, it's unsettling. And you cannot even begin to process that and have some level of journey forward, which to be, this is a tough one. This would be some that a lot of people would be like, there's my deal breaker, I can't do it. And it sounds like you're trying. However, you're trying with somebody who is defensive, plays the victim, and it's playing sad boy, versus owning, oh my God, I can't imagine how it would feel to be the mother of children, the age of the people that I'm attracted to. And A, you're still with me and you're still willing to work through this. And B, that you have like the level of wherewithal to say, I like right now, I'm setting the boundary. I can't go somewhere with you, because if you're staring or leering, like that is a no-go. So to be met with defensiveness and to be met with a victim, that would be it for me. I mean, no way. The first one is hard enough to get over. I mean, and 40 plus, 40 plus year old. Oh, he's over 40-year-old husband.
He's over
They
40
haven't been
years old,
married
yeah.
40
And
years.
they've got teen, right.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, we've had them at all ages, but the bottom line is, you know, does that come up? It does. Why? Because someone's arousal template is frozen at a certain part of their own sexual, you know, development. Does that make it okay for a 40-year-old in any way to act on that? No. Even if that's in pornography. I mean, we have guys that come that have been rated. Like, they're on top of this. Let me tell you, especially in the state of California, people are getting in trouble for viewing, distribution, any of the above. So I'm praying that he doesn't, it's not going to that place, but you have to be aware of that. So I would just say right now, get safety for yourself and your children. If he's not someone that can even own this part of himself and be able to have a conversation with you, and he goes immediately to being angry and creating stories and victimhood, and that doesn't sound like a way to live, you know. And pretty, I mean, you're gonna have the teen daughter's friends over, and teen daughter
Or not, you
or
know,
not.
like, yeah, like I would be going like, no way I'm inviting someone else's children over, you know, like, so it creates a scenario where you live differently than you can and should, you
Yeah.
aren't even going to be able to be relaxed in your own home and have, friends over, because like you would all, unless he's gone for a week or something. But it's like one of those things where, like you I can feel you are feeling like, how do I make this safe? And extra boundaries. But yeah, like really challenging, to remain in a house with those, with those situations going on still. So, and I don't hear, because I hear 5 years since I discovered, but I don't hear, that he's doing any work, to do anything to change. So, lots of resources on our site. I did put the online work group. We have the trade partner work group that started last week, Wednesday. I've added a couple people to that. There's still room. We'll offer it again in November, but you reach out to me, Tammy, TAMI at Seeking Integrity. If you don't have a qualified support person, would be happy to help you find somebody, because gosh, that's a lot on your plate. So
Yeah. And I'll just like throw this disclaimer out here. All we have is what we're given in a very short paragraph,
true, true, yeah.
And I've had clients come into treatment and they're like, you butchered me, and I'm like,
Oh,
first of all, I didn't even know it was you. Second of all, I didn't even know it was your partner. And third, all I have to go off of is what I'm being shown. I know
yes.
there's always infinitely more details about the situation, how somebody else would present it. We just do the best we can with what we have in front of us.
Well, and with this, like, I wouldn't butcher him. I would go, gosh, please get help, because Erin's right. I mean, do you know how many times we get calls about where and they don't come knocking on the door and say, hi, can we come in? They break down the door, and it's very public, and the kids, all the kids friends at school know what happened. I mean, it's awful. And so we are really looking for healing and the opportunity for people to get the help that they need, so that they don't cause problems for themselves and their families. So but unfortunately, we deal with it every day, where the people don't get help. Now, I will say to the person who was saying, you butchered me, and here you are getting the help that you need, so that
He
now I
forgave
can
me
say
for
good
it.
things.
He was
Well,
like,
that's good.
all right.
Good. Okay. I've been telling him he's protecting his addiction. Is that normal for someone who claims to be sober since D-Day and in recovery, or am I just covering, or am I just a cover for something bigger? And I don't know which one that goes to. When they're
I think it's
anonymous
the one.
attendees,
I
I
think it's
think
the
it
one.
might be two ahead.
Oh, really? Well, I'll tell you.
Well, let's just talk about it in a general way.
Okay.
So,
Protecting your addiction. Okay. So sobriety and recovery are two different things, right? So sexual abstinence is I've stopped doing the behavior. A lot of the other things that are more rooted in character defects, in our attachment, in our the way we were raised and the way we respond to everybody, some of the compulsive lying, like some of that stuff takes longer. It's not I got sober and I'm like, hey, like I got it all together. I know how to do this. Because for most of our guys, it's like literally learning a new language. To be emotionally vulnerable when they were never raised with emotional vulnerability. Nobody taught them how to share or express their feelings. Nobody even cared about their feelings. And I learned that I'm needless and I am wantless. So I don't even know how to ask for my needs to be met. I assume they're never going to be met. I mean, all of these things. Or I learned to lie as a way to avoid punishment, or I learned to lie as a way to avoid losing love or attachment from somebody. So a lot of those things come with time when someone's in recovery. So recovery meaning I'm actually doing the work. I'm diving in. I'm going to meetings. I'm doing my best to try. Um, like all the suggestions that are laid in front of me. That is when you start to see an actual change and shift in some of the actual character defect, attachment based, trauma healing, all of the things that come along with that. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this one, although because I don't have the context, but I will say, could he be protecting his addiction? Sure. I tend to say go with your gut. Um, Many betrayed partners have been gaslit and lied to for so long that they lose their sense of intuition. I've been in that place where you literally don't know if you're going crazy because you've been told you're crazy, when your intuition was going off so many times that you've almost been conditioned not to believe it, not to hear it. And I always say you don't even need the evidence, just go off the behavior in front of you. Some people think, well, I need the hard evidence to put in front of his face. Well, look, you did this. No, I would be able to say, I don't like the way you're treating me. I don't like the way you're being defensive. I don't like the way you're manipulating. And the fact that you lied, that leads me to believe that there is something more. And I don't need the evidence I'm going to go with my intuition on this. And I don't feel good regardless. And so I'm going to put some boundaries in place to get a little bit of space until I feel like we're on better ground and we're doing some better work on ourselves.
Thank you. That's what I was going to actually ask you to, because here's the story I told myself. Like if I would feel like you're coming after me. You're protecting your addiction versus, what Erin just shared about, like, I don't feel safe. The words you're saying don't align with what your actions, all of those things, this is what I'm doing. And therefore, for my healthy boundary, I'm going to go see my tribe. I'm going to take care of myself. And, if you're willing to do the work, then I'm going to check in with you later. But like, I've been in recovery a long time. I still don't like getting told what to do. I still don't want to be attacked. And that's what I would feel. And I'm not blaming you at all, partner. Please hear that. I'm just saying, if your goal is to get your message across, doing it in a way where I'm going, like, I'm taking care of me. You do you. But somebody emailed me the other day, and she wrote a beautiful response to an addict. And I said, that's great, and be prepared for the backlash. And she was like, well, how could it? I gave her like 6 points. I said, because just like Erin was talking about, like, you have all the evidence. It doesn't matter. There's always an end run that an addict, will be defensive about it and look for, well, you could have 99 details right, and there's one that's half wrong, and that's what we're going to latch into. So if your goal is to go, like, this is not creating safety for me, this is not building trust, share it that way, and what you're going to do to take care of you, and what you're looking for, what the actions that you are looking for. Defensiveness, anger, that does not build trust. That does not inspire confidence that the addict is actually doing something that will be different. So, but is it normal for an addict? I'm going to say yes, because sobriety, I always say, abstinence is just not acting out. Those are the things we weren't supposed to be doing in the first place. Sobriety is, I'm starting to get a clue. But recovery, like, you're looking at 2 to 5 years. Some say longer, but I'm really, I really see, people getting, a path where they're integrating it into all areas of life. It isn't like, well, I'm doing my recovery work and I'm still defensive and mean, over here. No, we have to have it all throughout. This is who we are. This is who we show up as. So you're asking the right questions, and I would invite you, how can you express that in a way where your goal of getting the message across of this is not really working, and I don't really believe that, comes across, but in a way that you're still taking care of you. Okay. This is another good question. Suggestions on how to prepare for disclosure as a partner who feels they are going a little crazy waiting.
Yeah. I cannot tell you how many times we are, especially after treatment, but we get either our client who's now an alumni or the partner being like, you know what, we can't do this waiting thing. We're just going to do it on our own tonight. And we're all like, don't do it. Like, because it absolutely is a fucking disaster every time. And here's why. It's like disclosure is almost like having detectives on the case, right? It allows for the addict to slow down and to, with the support of somebody else, with corroborating records, to like really take a thorough look through their past. Addicts, when we are in acting out mode, we're not even using our prefrontal cortex. So when you say, I don't remember, they actually mean that a lot of the time, especially when it's occurred for many years. To get an accurate report on some of the questions that you have when someone's flying off the cuff, it's not going to be complete. It's not. And then you're setting yourself up to do this again. So I just say, in the waiting, self-care. Come on our Empowered Women's Retreat. Get a self-care routine together for you that makes you feel like like for a change, you have spent in this crisis a lot of focus and attention on where the crisis is. It's over here. It's this person who I love is like walking away and doing these things, and I'm hurt and I'm destroyed. Allowing self-care to put the attention back and the love and the focus back on yourself. If that's, I'm going to do one thing for myself every day, right? If that's, I'm going to start a morning routine where I journal and I get my feelings out. If it's, I'm going to start seeing a therapist, I'm going to join a women's group. I'm going to join, I mean, in the early days of betrayal for me, I literally joined everything and anything that I could. I was like, oh, there's a sound bath on Tuesday at the community center. I'm there. I mean, I literally was searching for a tribe. I was like, I can't do this alone. So I think in the waiting, what you're waiting for is a complete and hopefully honest place to then say, this puts the stake in the ground. We're able to then move forward from this spot. We're rushing through. And I think that most CSATs, I would say that if there was an emergency disclosure in there, if there was something that's like, no, she needs to know this now, they would tell you. We, even in treatment, we don't do disclosure, but there are certain situations that are emergency disclosures, right? There is harm or threat to your health, to your safety, to your family. We're going to tell you. So I just think the waiting is so that it can be the healing experience that it's intended to be. There's a lot of work in preparing for disclosure that therapists should be giving you as well, right? How am I preparing my heart, preparing my mind? There's workbooks people go through. So there's lots of steps to get to that place. So I would just say diving into, well, how can I empower myself to feel the best that I can in this process? And a lot of times that's just figuring out, how do I anchor in me? I have to find an anchor daily in myself. I cannot, if that anchor is attached to somebody else, I'm being pulled all over the place. It's like, how can I stand on my own 2 feet, ground down into my experience, my body, and be present? And then that's how I get to show up as the mom I want to be. That's how I get to show up as the employee I want to be. And that's how I get to show up working with the men that we work, is I'm grounded in my own self, in my own body. So that's where I go with that. It is tough. It's like you've already gone through this whole experience of, I thought my reality is one thing and now it's another thing. And now in the waiting, I'm waiting for another reality to hit me. And oftentimes our trauma brain will start to fill in the blanks, and really, our brain is trying to keep us safe, and it's oftentimes not very helpful to us. It goes to deep, dark places. Well, what if this? What if that? And oftentimes it's not what we think at all. Yeah.
But like the deep dark places, it's like, well, I just need to know, because like then I'm going to be okay. But what you shared with, like, no, like the DIY, I Erin and Dr. Rob, co-host a peer case consultation group every Tuesday. These are therapists from around the world who do this work. Guess what the most talked about topic is? Formal therapeutic disclosure. So if they're asking questions of their trained peers, I don't understand what people think, that a DIY disclosure is going to do and do well for them. And in addition to what you just shared, it's also, there's no framework, so then it's just details. And then the poor partners are going like, I have these gory details in my head. There's no framework, there's no support, there's no nothing, and they are more traumatized. It is a deeper place of healing to try to get to just, baseline again than they would have had if they waited. And so, but it's really hard, because I know, like you're talking about with that brand of going like, I'm safety seeking. If I just know, then I'm going to be okay. And no, when if the point of a formal therapeutic disclosure is to set a foundation for healing, you want to do it right. You do not want to, this isn't, a Lowe's or Home Depot, nothing against them, like DIY job. Like, please, please, please get the support that you deserve, in order to make this, it's hard enough. It makes it worse, and people probably tonight will still go do a DIY disclosure. So it's all good. We're here. Oh, on the topic of fetishes, we're back to fetishes. My partner is into barely legal porn I am in my 40s, so not clearly, or so clearly not young like he prefers. Oh, I'm sorry. I got something to share about that too. I'm also older than him. Furthermore, I don't believe he's ever acted on being with much younger women, but we do have a little girl, and I'm freaked out that there's a possibility that could escalate when she's older, with her friends. So I'm going to put a plug in for this, and then I want Erin to answer. But we have a special edition of a webinar on November 7th. Debbie Allen is hosting. She has a client who was a model, is a model, I think still is a model. And her body image was so negatively impacted by, the sex addiction. And so I just keyed in on I'm not his type, as young as, and feeling body shame about you. And so I hope you'll please join us for that webinar. It's posted on our website. But Erin, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah. So unfortunately, self-esteem is obviously impacted in this because oftentimes many of our partners don't match what they're watching in porn, and they never could. Some of it's like things that could never be changed. The thing that I want to say is this: Esther Perel in the book Mating in Captivity talks about the third. Okay, so in a partnership of two, the third is sexual fantasy, sexual expression, like, and oftentimes fantasy is not even actually what they would want in reality. Fantasy comes with no baggage. It comes with it's like painting on a canvas. Make it what you want, right? It doesn't come with bills and obligations and emotional intensity and rejection, and it doesn't come with any of those things. So an outlet, right? But many, and there was even studies done on this where if the person actually had that thing in real life, would they want it? And they're like, no. So
Wow.
fantasy life and reality are two very different things that actually should not be compared at all. You know, I can understand certainly when, especially if someone's addicted to porn, you're like, they're not giving me attention. They can't get an erection with me. Their attention is all going over here. What they're looking at is like, I've had white women whose husbands are looking at black women and they're like, I could never be black. I could never fit that arousal template. Or they're one stick, pin, twig, 19-year-old. Like, I don't. So I'm just saying that does not necessarily mean that unless it is a all-encompassing fetish where they literally have no ability to be attracted to anything else, which is incredibly rare, unless we're talking about like pedophilia, right? Where somebody is like, absolutely, I am attracted to minors and that is it. I can't get attracted to adults my own age. Obviously, that's not the case here. Okay, so that's one side of this, because that could be about anything: red hair, big boobs. I mean, it could be about age, it could be about race, it could be about certain activities. It doesn't matter. But the fantasy and reality are not always compatible, comparable, or they actually don't weigh on each other. But I can absolutely understand how you would feel that way because the attention is elsewhere right now, and I can't be that thing. Okay. The second piece is barely legal is a little bit of a term that people use when it's probably not legal. So I just want to just throw that out there that, especially in the reporting world, some will use barely legal because they know that reporting that it is a minor would, potentially constitute a report of some kind, right? It's illegal. So that's why we say barely legal, right? It's like, I can't say illegal, so I'm going to say barely legal. And that is a whole category on porn. I am not convinced that half of what is out there and available is actually consenting adults, especially when it's tagged as barely legal. There's trafficking all the hell over the industry. So I'm not going to say that it's one way or the other. But also, just because somebody is looking up barely legal, right? Again, arousal template wise, could it be that their sexual development was arrested around that time, that they are, frozen at that time, that has a locked in a part of their arousal template, not their total arousal template, right? I can be aroused by all of these other things. But it does not, many people who have thoughts or fantasies never act it out in person. Again, the difference between fantasy and reality. So I wouldn't necessarily jump to like, okay, he is watching this, that he's going to offend against our daughters when they're older. Some men that would not even ever cross their mind, like never. And again, I mean, even if healthy consenting adults go to their fantasy world, again, we already had guys ask, like, what the hell does this mean? Half the time we don't even know where it comes from, and it doesn't make any sense, right? If I read my thoughts to you on a daily basis, you'd be like, what? And I don't know either. Sometimes it's spontaneous. I don't know. So I'm just saying that I wouldn't immediately go to being freaked out over the safety of your children unless there were indicators. Now, it's a little different when you're in person and they're leering, right? And they're being inappropriate, or they're making inappropriate comments or on their dress or their attire or their body. Like that would be okay. Now what's been in your fantasy shelf over here has had some roots that are coming out to play in reality. And that would be very concerning. But from all accounts, I don't see that happening here. So I hope that just gives some context to the various thoughts on that whole topic.
Well, and I'm like, we have a porn addiction 101 online work group starting November 2nd. I would, what is he doing to stop the porn? I also am wondering what your healthy boundaries are about, about that, not in your house or whatever. But to me, this is, what do you need to do to take care of you?
I'm going to
But
lock my office door because all my little wrecking balls just got home, and they like to
oh,
storm into my office. So I'm just gonna lock the door
okay.
to that. Hold on.
Yep, totally understand, and otherwise we'll enjoy seeing them just run across the screen. But yes, we have lots of people who look at porn and never act out with another person, which is why we have separate groups for porn addiction. But we've got lots of guys that come to our residential treatment program, again, that have looked at images, or cam girls, cam boys, but not acted out in person with someone else. So okay, next question, Erin. Um, Besides the things that help strengthen intimacy, what types of things typically reduce intimacy? Oh, goodness, that's a long list. I've explained to my spouse that I want to strengthen our intimacy and listed some ways that I feel help to increase our emotional, psychological, spiritual, non-sexual, physical intimacy. She heard me and usually dismisses me for sounding like a woman. At times, this is from a male. At times, she approached me to be sexually intimate and will list off to-do things, list of things she thinks she's done that are on the list, but ignores all the self-soothing, immature, irresponsible, disconnecting things that she's been doing that reduce intimacy. There's part of your list. It feels sometimes like a game of snakes and ladders, where she only counts the things that are on the list, but doesn't take into account the things that I feel distances. How do I help her best understand this concept?
Yeah. So I think the first is recognizing, typically, that we all have different love languages, right? We all have different needs. And I think that's where love in its purest form is it's a give and a take, right? It can be selfless at times. Other times it's like I'm at 80%, fill in the 20, and vice versa. Is recognizing that there's this assumption that I think many of our clients make, that my partner wants to receive love the same way that I want to receive love, or my partner should not be annoyed by the things that I'm not annoyed by, right? Versus taking an honest look at. And so I think that might be a way to approach it, is like, I want to understand how best to love you. And I want to understand the ways that draw me closer to you and the ways that push me away. And then I want to share with you. And it sounds like you're trying to do that, but like all this listing, like you're doing the thing on this list and not the thing on this list, and I hate that she dismissed your needs as sounding like a woman, because the truth is all human beings have needs. Men have been socialized from a very young age not to have them. Don't be emotional or you're a pussy. Don't cry or you're weak, right? Suck it up. Like all of those things have socialized men to not have they don't even know what their needs are at the time, let alone being able to be vulnerable enough to express them. So I just want to give you big props for actually recognizing you have needs and trying to find ways to navigate sharing them. Now, I don't know the context of why you're on like a webinar around sex addiction. So I don't know if that's playing into some of the layers, whether it's her, whether it's you, and whether that is playing into why there's this disconnect. But if I'm just reading it at face value, I would say, like, understanding, I want us to be drawn close together. And thank you for what sounds like she's like checking the boxes, like, okay, I rubbed your back. That should be like, let's get intimacy going here. And it's like, wait, hold on a second. You also just spent the last 10 minutes dismissing that I had feelings at all and calling me a woman. Like, that doesn't make me feel very masculine or in my masculine energy, or like we're polarities and we're getting like frisky here. So I just think trying to best understand how she receives love and what things you do that push her away, and then flip it and say, like, let's have an open conversation. And I know I'm not okay with you dismissing my feelings. I'm not okay with you dismissing things I want to talk to you about um, as a woman, because that would be like you dismissing your own self for having feelings. I mean, it just, yeah. I think it is equally as important to understand both sides of that, because I could have, you know, let's say my husband do all the things on the list that piss me off all day long, and then come at the end of the night and be like, hey, how you like a massage. I'm gonna be like, get out of here, especially for women, but men too. There is a courting process that takes place during the whole day. That simple tasks like assisting with the dishwasher, or being kind and loving towards your children, or picking up that extra thing that you really love for dinner, or that all of those things are foreplay. And it is not just the 3 seconds that leads up to intercourse, right? That there is, so I think that's where you're coming from, is it's like, hey, I do need more of a foreplay throughout the day. In other words, we're courting intimacy, whether it be emotional, whether it be physical, throughout the day, so that we're in a place where then we feel like connecting physically. Yeah.
So the next two questions, there's some tie-ins. So, but my SA partner uses online and in-person recovery groups as a way to flirt, chat, and pick up on women. He
Oh,
promised he would only attend men's only meetings because it is such a problem. He has been attending co-ed meetings and not telling me, not sure what to do anymore.
well, I mean, yeah, that would be a big ass boundary. So I would be saying, due to your behavior in the past, where you are flirting, chatting, picking up on women, I am only comfortable with you going to men's meetings. I'm also not comfortable with you lying to me about it. If you're going to continue to do that, I'm going to have to move further away from you. That your efforts towards recovery are continuing to betray and hurt me, and therefore I don't feel safe engaging in the process of moving forward. I mean, yeah, especially if you have like direct evidence that that's what he's doing at meetings. And most partners in heterosexual couples are that are in this place of like repair do have a little bit of discomfort, because the women at the meetings are also identifying as sex addicts, which doesn't necessarily like breed trust. And in the beginning, some don't have a problem with it, right? So I just think being really clear that you're not, it sounds like you've been clear, you're not comfortable with it, hence now he's gone to just lying to you about it. But it's boundary time. What are you going to do? And boundaries don't require the other person to take any action at all. It is the boundary setter's job to actually make a move. I said I'm going to do this if you continue to do this. So what am I going to do? And then take care of yourself, because this sucks. That sucks.
So continuing, my husband and I have been married for 26 years. He says he has a sponsor and is going to SAA meetings. Every time we go out, he writes a safety plan. He never follows through with a safety plan. When we are together, I see him looking, leering, searching for his triggers, and being unavailable for me. He is giving me his second disclosure this December. A couple of years ago, he did a disclosure. I knew he would do a minimal job without much effort. I timed the disclosure, which took 1 year to write. I watched the clock. He took 15 minutes only and continued to lie. I kept on holding on and trying to heal. I feel like he is still not honest, feel like a victim, and he has been angry and resentful towards me. I am wasting my time. I want to know, I want to know it was a very bad decision to stay with this addict waiting for him to show up for. And so one of the things I'm going back, like, this does not feel like he did a disclosure with qualified professionals. And I hope you at least have that planned for December. Because I hear he has a sponsor. I don't hear that you have support. I don't hear that he's working with a CSAT therapist. But if this is what's going on, to me, I'm going like, sounds like you'll get another very poor disclosure. And remember, we just said it's not a do-it-yourself job. But Erin, so much about the safety plan, and he never follows through. It feels like a lot like the last question in healthy boundaries. So.
Well, yeah, all of this. I don't follow through on the safety plan. He lied in disclosure the last time. He wrote a disclosure for a year that took 15 minutes total. I mean, I don't know. So the question is it a very bad decision to stay with this addict waiting for him to show up? I cannot answer that for you. That comes down to your level of tolerance, right? Your ability to hang on to yourself. Some people stay in relationships separated while they're, hey, I'm going to take care of myself and live my big, best, beautiful life while you are over here figuring it out. I'm not giving you all the parts of myself right now because you're not safe to be around. You're angry. You're not honest. You're a victim. You're resentful toward me. I mean, all of those things. Yeah. I mean, you've invested a lot in this relationship, right? And so we are one place on this earth that's not going to judge you for staying, and we are not going to judge you for going. But that decision has to be yours. And you have to ask yourself, do I have it in me? You may wait till disclosure. You may not need to get to disclosure. You may say, you know what, just based on all the other stuff. So I don't know. My window of tolerance is different than your window of tolerance. There's so many factors. Are there other things he's been amazing at? Is it just this? I mean, there's a lot of questions, but you have to ask yourself, am I losing me? Am I losing myself in this? Or am I able to hold on to myself and stay with me while this is all carrying out and while I'm hoping and praying that he gets it? We have people that have been married 40 years that have a massive turnaround, and things are, they go on to that next phase of life in a completely different way, right? They're in true recovery, done a lot of work. And I've had people married 50 years, call it quits. A lot of time, energy, love invested, but you got to ask yourself, how do I want to live moving forward?
Yeah, well, and I think, like we did this a few years ago, and like, do you, so I'm, do you see it being different this time? I like, just be prepared, because otherwise you're probably going to get something very similar. But I put some in the chat. I called out some specific webinars. We've had kind of a little series in May. Kristen Snowden did a great job with a webinar. Should I stay or should I go? And it's just journal about the questions. It's like, we can't tell you, but you can tell you, like, if as you're journaling through that, I think you'll get some clarity. Separately, Debbie Allen did a webinar also in May with two partners. One chose to stay, one chose to leave, and they shared very vulnerably their story. And then Deborah Doak, who does mediation, and she actually works within the sex addiction arena, which is a very unique thing. And she talked about, if you stay, stay well, do it, with integrity with yourself. If you leave well, and if you're in between, get a plan, And so it was really good. And then separately, our colleague, Stuart Leviton, who is also an attorney, is going to be on October 30th, and he's just going to share some legal considerations. He won't be giving any legal advice, but it's kind of this little, a group of webinars that can, I think, be helpful for educating and help people, if you're staying, do it. Great. Make sure you're taking care of you. If you're leaving, grief. There's grief around all of this. And, we have a plan. So one more question. Okay, we're going to get this. My partner's CSAT haphazardly, oh no, haphazardly diagnosed me, the betrayed partner, as having borderline personality disorder, which has made me feel like this is all my fault and I'm just crazy. It feels quite confusing and another betrayal from a professional who I would expect to know a bit better. What am I supposed to do with this information?
Okay, that is like the cardinal rule broken. First of all, I don't even diagnose personality disorders by men that are staying in my program unless they get additional neuropsychological testing. Because a personality disorder is pervasive through all areas of life from the age of before 13. How could someone who's never met you diagnose you based on the words of someone who has hurt and betrayed you? So
and lies.
Yeah, it would be a big fat no for me. Like, no. Because and also you should check with that CSAT, because addicts also love to say, because they've heard it at meetings about talking about their partners. Here's the thing. When someone is highly traumatized, they may look like come here, go away. Personality disorders are lifetime, right? They have been the span of a life, which is why I don't even diagnose it even when I have somebody in front of me for 3-4 weeks around the clock. So I just don't, I just verify that the CSAT actually said that, because addicts can lie. Okay. And what a better way to do it than to be like, you're the problem. You're crazy. You're the one that caused all this. You did not cause this. You did not create this. Every adult consenting person has a right to choose. I'm going to go outside my marriage, or I'm going to deal with the issues that we have in our marriage. Okay. We've had every level of amazing marriage have people act out in. Every level of dysfunctional marriage, people act out in. It doesn't matter. As adults, we have a choice to deal with what's going on in the marriage or to act out outside of it. Okay. So I don't say anybody caused this, created this, made this happen. No. So you're not crazy. You did not make this happen. You do not get a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder from a therapist you've never met, period. That doesn't happen. That's not possible. So,
well, and even if they're a therapist, like Erin was saying, that's above her pay grade. Like, then we go get the qualified professionals who understand addiction and everything else, and they actually make a diagnosis. But that's a whole consultation for things. It isn't just going like, oh, I think I'm going to throw that, term around. Now, is addiction crazy making? Absolutely. But that does not mean, partners are crazy. It just means this is crazy making. So, but I'm with Erin. Like, yes, I would want to reach out to the CSAT and say, my husband, my partner, is saying that you diagnosed me as borderline personality disorder.
Just want to check that out with you, verify that.
Yeah. And how did you come up with that conclusion when you don't know me, and what is your training? So yeah.
The big no.
Yes, it is. So thank you, Erin. Thanks everyone for the great questions. We really appreciate you guys being here for apparently fetish night. So lots of resources on our site. Keep coming back. I did put the calendar with we've got more special edition webinars. So please join those as well. Kristen Snowden's going to be doing a couple extra this month on our site too. So lots of great content. Thanks everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.